8BitDo makes a ton of quality controllers I'd have no problem recommending to the average person. In fact, their SN30 Pro collab with Genki is one of my favorite controllers of the past year. It has great buttons, a cool design, great stick feel, and a compactness that makes it easy to toss in a bag. On the surface, 8BitDo's Pro 3 looks like it should be an upgraded version of that excellent controller, except with actual grips and analog triggers, of course. But dig a bit deeper, and it's the ton of upgrades that should work on paper that make it harder to recommend in practice. Much of that feeling starts with how the controller's designed. Out of the box, the plastic shell's not what I'd expect of a $70 controller. Its texture's generally comfortable. The lighter weight feel just reminds me of much cheaper controllers. There's a bit of balancing weight towards the end of the grip, but that's about it. It doesn't feel quite as substantial as I'd like, nor does it feel quite hollow. I'm just not the biggest fan. The overall shape of the controller is also kinda hit or miss. The straight grips feel comfortable enough during a few hours of play, however, they don't offer the controller any favors in terms of ergonomics. Without a bit of angle to them, I could see some wrist strain creeping in if I'm relaxing with it while sitting back on my couch. Again, very usable, just not the most comfortable controller I've tested from 8BitDo or other companies in quite a while. Not all's doom and gloom about this controller though. I quite like the flat SN30 Pro-like look. With many controllers on the market opting to mimic either Xbox or Nintendo's controller designs, I love using something just a bit different. Much of the actual input is also top tier. Starting up top, I'm a big fan of their analog triggers. They feel excellent to pull, with a great amount of travel and the right amount of resistance. Flipping a switch next to each also quickly kills the travel distance to make them into clicky digital triggers. They worked fantastically and are easy to flip in the middle of action. For example, I started playing Indiana Jones recently, and with the analog triggers enabled, I quickly ran into a fatiguing QuickTime event that required spamming left and right triggers a bunch of times. In the middle of the event, I just flipped the switches and gameplay became much more comfortable. Typically, trigger switches like this lead to a trigger feeling like there's just something blocking their path. They're usable, but just a bit awkward. 8BitDo's version is hard to distinguish from a native digital button. I dig it and would love to see it become commonplace. I do wish they applied that same clicky feel to the shoulder buttons though. They're a bit clunky, with a low profile that leads to my fingers hitting the shell during use. They generally feel fine, but maybe not the most premium. Luckily, the D-pad's much more enjoyable. Many of 8BitDo's previous controllers have a sort of stiff D-pad that feels precise, even if not my favorite. Here, they've melded that feel with much clickier switches to make something much greater. Each direction feels precise, purposeful, and tactile. If you've ever used a modern clicky D-pad in the past, imagine that, but with a bit more travel, a bit more resistance. It's the kind of feel that's great when paired with 2D platformers, and would be an understandable reason to buy one of these controllers. And then, moving on to the sticks, the sticks are good, just not the best. Like many manufacturers, 8BitDo's upgraded their sticks from Hall Effect to TMR. I'm a big fan of this change. From the handful of TMR-equipped controllers I've used so far, they tend to have a bit more resistance to them than the Hall Effect sticks have, making them much more enjoyable to use. Same goes for the Pro 3. I'd personally like a hair bit more resistance, but they feel excellent in use. For aiming or movement, they're smooth and kind of get out of their own way. Their symmetrical placement also feels great for this controller design. Like many modern controllers, the stick caps also lift out without too much trouble. Hypothetically, this could make them easy to replace in the future if they break or wear out. Unfortunately, 8BitDo doesn't offer any alternate stick caps through their online store and only includes a couple ball tops in the box. For someone like me, the ball tops are way too tall to be usable and will likely get lost in a box somewhere. I don't feel like the intended audience though. Using the back of my hand or my wrist, they feel much easier to use than standard thumbsticks. That makes me think they could be great default additions for anyone who has difficulty using standard thumbsticks for one reason or another. That's pretty neat. Just, I wish 8BitDo would make more options available, even if I had to pay a bit more. Still, the sticks here have metal sleeves and decent caps. I don't think anyone will be too put out without additional options. And considering how many repair parts 8BitDo sells in their shop, I wouldn't be surprised to see replacements pop up eventually. And if what I've said so far were the entire story of the input, I'd likely feel much better about this controller. Unfortunately, the action buttons are absolutely the weakest part of the controller, and the biggest reason I might not recommend it to everyone. On paper, they should be excellent. 8BitDo designed a mechanism to physically swap buttons or replace them with other buttons. It's a welcome feature that I've loved on other controllers, since it eliminates the extra mental step when swapping between Switch and PC button layouts. It's just not implemented well here. Buttons can't easily be lifted out with just my fingers. I have to use a small removal tool that comes with the controller, which also takes a bit of practice to properly apply. Unlike, say, my GameSir G8 Plus, that means I'm not swapping these buttons on the fly or while traveling. Beyond that hassle, the latch mechanism also isn't ideal. Each button has a single, small key to make sure it's oriented correctly. In practice, that key is often finicky to align on the first try, especially with the legendless buttons 8BitDo provides. On multiple occasions, it's led to buttons that I thought were securely attached, but ended up falling out because they were slightly misaligned. It's frustrating and feels in need of a redesign. If that were the only problem, I might wave it off, since I won't be swapping buttons often anyway. Unfortunately, the mechanism they used to make the buttons swappable also makes them very clacky. Even compared to my controllers that use mouse clicks, the Pro 3 is an exceptionally loud controller in a kinda unpleasant way. It's something plenty of folks could likely overlook if they liked other features about this controller, but it'll be enough for me to not buy any future 8BitDo controllers using this style of buttons. Beyond the design and input quirks, the controller does feel fine to use. It won't be winning any awards for comfort, but it's a suitably usable controller that I could see as someone's primary controller. After many hours playing various games, my only gripes about usability have been that the plastics make my palms kinda sweaty after a while, and I've accidentally hit the grip buttons multiple times. Their position makes sense, but they're also really light to actuate. It's to the extent where even tilting the controller can press the buttons unless I'm extra careful. On the bright side, the buttons aren't mapped to anything by default, so it's a pain, but hasn't affected gameplay. If you did want to map one of the 4 extra buttons to other buttons, the process is as easy as holding all buttons in question and pressing the star button. It works well, even if it's a bit awkward. 8BitDo's Ultimate software also works with the Pro 3 if you'd rather go that route. From there, you can remap all buttons, update firmware, and fine-tune controls as you please. Up to 3 controller profiles can be stored at once on the controller, and you'll also only have the ability to add time between button presses if you're using the software. Again, works well enough, no complaints. In terms of actual connectivity, the Pro 3 also hits all the expected bases. On the back is a switch to swap between Switch, D input, and X input. Switch input does work with Switch 2, has full gyro support, and has a decent enough rumble. Just don't expect HD rumble, amiibo support, or the ability to remap grip buttons in the quick menu. The Pro 3 also doesn't wake my Switch 2 from sleep, which is kinda inconvenient. If you were looking to buy this as a cheaper alternative to the Switch 2 Pro controller, I probably wouldn't recommend it. The Switch 2 Pro is a nicer feeling controller that offers too many features the 8BitDo Pro 3 is missing. The Pro 3 is mainly a controller for folks playing on PC who might also have a Switch. Playing on PC feels perfectly fine though. 8BitDo includes a USB-C 2.4G dongle in the box, which is perfect for plugging into a laptop for a quick play session. 2.4G does only work with X input, but I've yet to have an issue with that, and I appreciate the convenience over Bluetooth. Also in the box is a nifty charging cradle that attaches via pogo pins on the back. It looks nice and connects easily. There's also a bay on the bottom that allows for dongle storage with a pass-through 2.4G connection. For folks playing mostly at their desk, it'd be a great setup to connect the controller and then charge it when finished. To wrap up this video, the 8BitDo Pro 3 has a ton of great ideas. In use, it feels pretty good, and beyond some questionable ergonomics and exceptionally loud action buttons, likely won't disappoint a ton of folks. During my use, I've generally enjoyed my time with the controller. There are just a ton of small issues that'll likely stop me from coming back to it over time. $70 is the price range where I start to expect a reasonable amount of polish out of a controller. The Pro 3 doesn't feel like it quite lives up to that standard. There are also plenty of other controllers on the market, even from 8BitDo, which will feel better to use. Which is a real shame. I really wanted to like this controller, but at this point, I am more than happy to move on to the next controller in my queue. Those are my thoughts though. Now's the time when I ask for yours. Have you picked up 8BitDo's Pro 3 and have thoughts of your own, or are you considering picking one up for yourself and have questions? Let me know down in the comments. As always, if you found this video helpful or informative, go ahead and give it a like to let me know, then get subscribed for more controller reviews in the very near future. That's going to be all for this video. Thank you so much for watching all the way until the end. Until next time, catch you later.